If I say I got stuck in traffic, you can go. You don't understand traffic. So I'm sorry I'm a little late. All right. So what I want to talk about this morning is the concept of establishing partnerships for purposes of making growth lower risk and getting market acceptance more rapidly. So the premise of this is as follows. So I'm trying to develop a path to minimize risk and increase probability of success, and a way to reduce dilution that goes with selling stock, selling equity for capital, and as well a way to increase speed of market penetration. That's the goal. So let's look at a perfect company. Apple's a perfect company, and when I say perfect, what I mean is I'm not talking about the products. What I mean is that as a mature company, it has developed 5 key assets, resources that enable it to maintain market position and grow. Thank you very much. And those 5 are that it has intellectual property, it has patents and know-how and skills within the organization. It has manufacturing capability. In Apple's case, they actually subcontract a lot of their manufacturing out to companies like Flextronics, but they have relationships with those companies. It has brand equity, and brand equity means that customers like their products and trust Apple, and so they buy products because of brand. It has asset strength in terms of cash. It has a strong balance sheet, billions and billions of dollars on the balance sheet. And it has a distribution channel that it controls, and which consists of both Apple stores and also other conventional retail channels for computer products and telephone products. And you put all that together and you have an extraordinarily powerful company. And so the assumption is that competitive pressures have eliminated the opportunity to take the time to develop sales and marketing processes for startups, and that the sales and marketing section of your business represents the highest risk to the business model. It's the part that you least understand, and the amount of cash needed is large and also uncertain. You don't know how much cash you need to develop the marketplace. So partnerships are another approach, and so typically most small companies start with one part of this pie. So for example, they might have intellectual property, a product idea that they really think is cool and works. Maybe it's a SaaS model or a software product, so there isn't really a manufacturing problem where you can buy it from Amazon.com. If it's a SaaS model, you can buy cloud computing. So often these components of your business are where most small companies start. They have an invention and they have maybe a server that runs the software, or it's an app. And the goal here is, can you find a partner that fills in those missing pieces for you and creates a perfect company? That's a pretty simple concept. As well as part of trying to identify a partner, you have to look at the ecosystems that are served by your products. And it's not just a question of who is your customer, but who can be your customer? Who could I entice into helping me enter into this market? And where do I have maximum leverage? How do I basically get somebody else to use their skills, their money, their distribution channel to help me? So I'm going to use a case study, a company that is part of the IDC, one that I'm familiar with. So here's a company that's called eCurve. This is their name, eCurve. It's actually a Brazilian who started the company, although he lives in the US. He used to work for AT&T as a software guy, a network software guy. And what he discovered is that in the US, and not true everywhere in the world, but in the US, utilities were highly motivated to reduce peak usage of their clients for purposes of eliminating their need to add additional generation capability. So when I say utility, I mean electric utility. So electric utilities created, and it was approved by the government, billing systems that penalize customers for peak usage. Clear? Everybody understand that?
Yeah.
And so you pay per kilowatt hour you use, but then there's this other system, which is the utility measures on a 15-minute basis. They divide time a month into 15-minute segments, and they look at how many kilowatt hours you use in each 15-minute segment, and then they look at the peak segment. And based on the peak, the largest 15 minutes that you use, they penalize you for the whole month. They charge you an extra amount for the whole month. And that's the billing system in the United States, called peak demand billing. Now, the benefit that the utility was looking for was to incentivize customers to reduce peak usage. Because when peak usage occurs, as I said, that's when they have problems. That's when everybody turns their air conditioners on, that's when they have problems. But the problem for many complicated companies is that if you have 10 air conditioners in your building, like this is a good example of school. The school has probably, 20 buildings, 30 buildings, and each building has maybe 5 air conditioning systems. So you have 150 air conditioning systems. Well, sometimes this air conditioner is on, this air conditioner is off, and sometimes this air conditioner is on, and this air conditioner is off. And so on average, you use an average amount of power because all the air conditioners are cycling on and off based on the load and the temperature and all that sort of stuff. But if once in the month, just by unlucky circumstance, all of the air conditioners happen to click on for a 15-minute segment, you get screwed. And that's the way statistics work. You run 30 buildings times what I said, 5 air conditioners, you run 150 air conditioners, and it's 80 degrees outside, and even though each air conditioner may only be on half of the total amount of time, the duty cycle is 50%, there'll be one moment in time when they're all on, and then you get penalized for that. So what this company observed was, if I could keep all the air conditioners coming on at exactly the same time, I'll delay this guy a little bit, I'll shut this guy off a little bit early, the amount of difference in the temperature of the room will be small. Maybe the air conditioner will cycle on a minute late, cycle off a minute early. The actual impact on the temperature of the room could be tiny, but the impact on the bill could be large. Everybody got it? Everybody with me? So what this company, eCurve, what the founder thought about is, if I knew what all the air conditioners were doing, if I knew the temperature in all the rooms, and I knew and I had control over all the air conditioners, I could more intelligently manage the air conditioners. Pretty straightforward. So what he did was he put a sensor in place of the thermostat to measure the temperature, and another sensor to measure the amount of current that was being drawn within the room on the power meter. And with those two, we figured, okay, now I can kind of figure out what I have to do. I can figure out how to manage the air conditioners so that they're not on at the same time. And I'll take those 2 pieces of data and I'll bring it back to a server. And that server will do the math and figure out the answer and send out the information. You start a little late, you start a little early, you shut down now, you turn on, that's it. That's the whole invention. And an invention requires 2 things. So it requires a box, and the box goes in the room where the air conditioners are, and it replaces the thermostat. And it requires software that accumulates the data of when air conditioners are on and what the temperature is, and controls all of these thermostats, essentially, controls all of the air conditioners remotely. So his own experience was at AT&T, and he knew that AT&T has 40,000 cell phone towers in the United States. And each cell phone tower has a tower and antennas, and it has this little room, a little bunker. And that room has 2 air conditioners. It has radios and stuff that are the critical part of an internet connection. It has radios. And it has 2 air conditioners to keep all the radios and stuff cool. And the reason it has 2 air conditioners is case one air conditioner dies, the other air conditioner is there. That's the reason it has two. So it doesn't need to run both at the same time. It intentionally, in fact, is running them alternately. One on, one off. One on, one off. And the reason it alternates them is because air conditioners, like lots of mechanical things, are better if they stay lubricated on the inside, and they stay lubricated because the motors are spinning and because pumps are working. And so the way these air conditioners are set up is that every hour or so it says, okay, it's your turn, and that air conditioner cycles on and off. And then it says, okay, it's your turn, and that air conditioner says on and off. And if this air conditioner dies, then this guy will go on and off. That's the way it works. And the company eCurve approaches AT&T, and they calculate that each tower could save $1,000 a year. The cost of the equipment is $1,000. The payback's a year. And then after the first year, you'd save $1,000 a tower times 40,000 towers, $40 million a year. Okay? All right, so good start. So they went and they talked to AT&T, and AT&T said, okay, let's try. We'll buy, 20 units. And so the founder and his partner, they got a truck and they built 20 units, and they took them to 20 different towers all over the U.S. because AT&T wanted them to try it in the desert and wanted them to try it in the mountains and whatever. And they arrived at each tower to install, with an electrician to install the unit. And they discovered, just by accident, that of the